Welcome to the Politics and Media programme. The repercussions of the murder of Lee Rigby in Woolwich continue to be felt across the Muslim community. Attacks on mosques have increased, the most serious being the burning down of the mosque in Muswell Hill, North London. Sadly, it's not been an isolated case. Verbal and physical abuse has risen, and so have online attacks. Here's an update.
Police arrested 4 teenagers over a fire at an Islamic school in Chislehurst on Saturday. It was just the latest in a string of attacks on Muslim buildings in the last few weeks, which also included the burning of a Bravanese welfare centre in Muswell Hill. Since the killing of drummer Lee Rigby in Woolwich by a man claiming to be a Muslim jihadist, the research group Tell Mama recorded a 15-fold increase in Islamophobic attacks. The group Faith Matters has also recorded 11 attacks on mosques. Fears are growing over the increase in membership of far-right groups such as the English Defence League. The appearance of the EDL initials on the side of the burnt-out ruins of Muswell Hill Mosque, which was burnt to the ground, suggests they may have been responsible for the attack, although their leadership denies this. Nevertheless, they have been involved in numerous demonstrations and clashes with protesters and police, which has worried local communities.
Well, I'm very upset and very shocked. You know, I just live around the corner from here. It's a peaceful neighborhood. You know, we don't think of Muswell Hill as being a hotbed of racism and fascism, and you know, everybody's outraged.
It's a beautiful, peaceful neighborhood, and we have always had different races and people from different backgrounds all over. And I hope that continues, that this would not deter people from being themselves.
The latest incident involved the assault of a 78-year-old Muslim woman in a racist attack in Aylesbury last Monday. In each instance of such attacks, there has been a call for unity by local community leaders and politicians, hoping to maintain harmony in an increasingly multicultural society. Metropolitan Police Commander Simon Letchford told the BBC that an additional police presence will be placed around areas they think might be vulnerable to further attacks. He also pointed out that the rates of Islamophobic attacks in London had risen to 8 times higher than normal. This comes in the light of criticism from the Islamic Human Rights Commission that police are not doing enough to protect communities and that Muslims are living in fear of further attacks. The murder of anti-fascist campaigner Clement Merrick in France last week has prompted an outcry in the country, with many politicians calling for far-right and neo-Nazi organisations to be banned. With the rise of extreme right politics and racist and Islamophobic sentiment across Europe, many people are calling for action to be taken to diffuse community tensions before things start to get out of hand. Alex MacDonald, Islam Channel.
Well, joining me to discuss the issues are Fiyaz Mughal from Tell Mama, and on the phone we have Massoud Shadjareh from the Islamic Human Rights Commission. We're also joined by Commander Simon Letchford from the Metropolitan Police. And welcome to the programme, all of you. Commander Letchford, let me just bring you in first. What's the Met's feeling about the level of Islamophobic attacks in the wake of the events in Woolwich?
Well, as you said in your report, we've seen an increase in incidents. We normally see, in terms of Islamic incidents, around about 1 a day. That's gone up to 8 incidents a day. Now, we know that these are often under-recorded, which is why we're asking our officers to go out into the community to engage with community leaders to encourage reporting, because it's absolutely essential that we get a true picture of the level of incidents, the level of threats that are being posed on the Muslim community, which also helps us in terms of where we put our police resources. Now, you know, clearly we only have a finite level of police resources, so we have to try and put them in the place where they have the greatest impact.
And what type of attacks? I mean, obviously we've seen the burning down of the mosque in Muswell Hill and an attack in Chislehurst over the weekend, which may or may not be related to this. There seems to be some evidence that perhaps certainly the Muswell Hill one was. What's the general pattern? What kind of incidents are we talking about?
Well, on the whole, the majority of the incidents that we're having reported to us that are flagged as Islamophobic crimes are name-calling, criminal damage, those type of incidents. Now, clearly, when you have a serious crime such as arson or physical assault, then that raises real concerns and fears, and that message goes out throughout the community. But you know, the majority of crimes that we're seeing are the name-calling. They're not specifically targeted against individuals. They tend to be focused against people who are leaving certain premises, whether that's community centres or mosques, and therefore are identifiable. They are targets against people who dress in a certain way. What we're not seeing is individuals being targeted on a regular basis, which creates some challenges for us in terms of investigation, because invariably the parties aren't known to each other.
Okay, Fiyaz, let me bring you into discussion now. Is that picture that Commander Letchford's given, is that the same picture that you're getting?
It is. We get a picture of both the online and the offline world, the street world. What Commander Letchford is mentioning there is actually resonating with us in terms of the visibility of Muslims. So most of the incidences we see are generalized name calling or throwing something small, or even throwing a plastic bottle, and yesterday a glass bottle at a woman. The fact is, these are general street-based incidences. What is missing in that equation is the online world. And for some journalists out there, the online world doesn't really matter in terms of hate incidences, but we are seeing targeted online material towards Muslim communities, and an enormous amount of it online, And that is one of the engines of the problem. And we've been saying this time and time again. And when we report to the Met, to be fair, on street-based incidences, they take action, and they take action quickly, and there are some difficulties. Victims sometimes don't report the full incident. They don't want to take it to court. But on the online world, the Met is severely lacking in its investigation capabilities, in actually getting any headway with social media. I tell you, I've had threats against myself that actually I'm still waiting a year down the line to get a response back from the Met. And if that's the case, if that's my personal incident, you know, the Met needs to pull up its socks in terms of the online world. It is severely lagging, but on the street-based incidences, exactly what the Commander has mentioned is what we're seeing.
OK, well, let me bring Massoud in here from the Islamic Human Rights Commission. What's your picture of the situation after Woolwich, Massoud?
Well, we've been here before. I mean, 9/11, 7/7, and I would have thought that we would be better equipped to deal with this. But unfortunately, we're saying that we're going backward. First of all, we know majority of people don't report. It really is those who report is just a tip of the iceberg. And, you know, some of the research that we've done over the years from 2000 or 2004 or 2011 showed that 13% of Muslims said that they were victims of physical attack. Now, you know, there's 3.5 million Muslims, and you could do your math. But the reality is that the Metropolitan Police response in comparison to 7/7 and 9/11 has been pathetic. They have in many ways cut relationship with most large organizations who after 9/11 and 7/7 got involved and came up with sort of procedures to, first of all, assure the community that something is being done for their protection, and also actually increase vigilance on agreed sort of premises. We also have got I mean, I wrote to the Commissioner right after Woolwich, and I urged him to do something in protection of the community, and nothing was done in real terms. And then we had, you know, incidents after incidents. And only last Friday, we had an incident reported to us that a mother and a daughter, 18-year-old daughter, in London, in Hammersmith, were attacked by a group of young women coming out of a bar in Main Street. And eventually, when the police came, they arrested those who have attacked, handcuffed them, and took him to the station. And they also told this family, would you like to go to the station to make a statement? The station is very close by, so they did. They went there, they wait 1 hour, 2 hours, nothing happened. And then one of their friends, which was coming, said, look, you better leave, because those people who attacked you are sitting in the car park, standing in the car park, giggling away with the police officers. And when they went out to investigate, they saw that those who were arrested and handcuffed are in the car park. One of them has got the hat of one of the police officers, and they're giggling away.
Okay, when they thanks. Let me just put those points to Commander Letchford then. I mean, there's some criticism here, Commander, both about the response on the ground to actual events, and particularly from Fiyaz about the ability of the Met to respond to some of the online threats. So do you think you're doing enough?
Well, we can always do more. We certainly listen to the feedback from the whole range of different community advisors. Now, in relation to the police response immediately after the Woolwich incident, officers were deployed across London, across every single London borough, to engage with their community, with their community contacts. Each day we had twice a day briefings were returned from every borough, which allowed us at Scotland Yard to assess the level of concern, level of incidents and the level of engagement across London. And that's very much the policing style that we've adopted in London, which is local policing teams working with local communities. So you've had a significant amount of interaction at a local level with communities. In relation to the internet issue, now this is a huge area for us, and it's not just the police that are challenged by this. There is an awful lot of social media now. It's all over the world. It's accessible all over the world. And one of the challenges that we face is around legislation. Now, if somebody posts something on an internet site from a foreign server, then it's virtually impossible to gather that information and intelligence to secure a prosecution. There's also clear guidance from the Director of Public Prosecutions around those offences that we will prosecute. And the bar for prosecution is very, very high. Now, we do monitor every single day social media. We look at the content of some of those postings, and you get postings from both sides, and often it's individuals antagonising each other, and it escalates up into name-calling and threats. And where people report those incidents, then we will look at those. We will speak to the Crown Prosecution Service. We have to identify where the posting has come from, and if we can do that and we can prosecute, then absolutely we will prosecute. And it was only the end of last week we had a successful prosecution for somebody who posted offensive comments on Facebook regarding the Woolwich incident. So where we can, we will absolutely prosecute offenders. And just touching on the last incident, Hammersmith. Now, clearly that sort of behaviour, if it happened, is not acceptable. And if we can have the details of that incident, then we will certainly look into it. But we've got dedicated units across London, community safety units, over 500 police officers who are there, dedicated to deal with allegations of hate crime and abuse, and any crime that's reported where the victim believes it's motivated because of their faith or religion will be allocated to that unit, and they'll investigate it. And those units have been in place for 10 years in the Met. And I'm very proud of the work that we've done over the last 10 years to improve our response to communities, to engage at a local level and to listen and work with them to provide a more effective police response. But, absolutely we can always do more. And we will always listen to people's concerns and act on them.
So, Fiyaz, I guess what the commander's saying there really is difficult to prosecute things that come from foreign servers, and that the bar is very high for prosecution. Is that a situation that you recognise as true? And if so, what should be done about it?
No, it's not a situation we recognise as true at all, in fact. I'll tell you why. There is existing law and EU legislation that says where you press the button on your keyboard, that is the law of the land that covers you. We have numerous far-right and English Defence League supporters who have been, for 14 months since Tell Mama has been running, have been pouring out tens of, if not hundreds of tweets per day from whenever they wake up to the time they go to bed. We even know the names of some of these people because actually online campaigners have tipped us off, and that's part of the third-party reporting structure. Somebody will say, I think it's this. We get a lot of intel information. But these people have gone on and on and on, and we've been reporting to the police on and on and on. And I can tell you those people are still there today, up to today. So actually, we don't recognise this. The law exists. The CPS has significantly raised the bar, yes. So the question is, if you go online and you are trolled, if somebody attacks you and says something about your faith, we have found that actually when we report that in, because the victim has actually come to us, there's no response back. There's no response back. And then you push it in again and there's no response back. And the fact is, this should not be an excuse. This thing about raising the bar should not be an excuse in relation to investigations, because actually the CPS guidelines are actually quite clear. Before they would use things like the Communications Act, they would use elements like the Harassment Act. And what the Keir Starmer says is we shouldn't rely on those two pieces of legislation to stifle free speech. But he made very clear, if there are religious or race hatred elements in there, then a range of those powers can be used as long as there are aggravatory factors. That's what that's what his law says. So actually what we're presenting to the Met are clear aggravating factors. What we get back is absolutely no response in the online world. But to be fair with them, at a street level, the Met are good. And there are problems in relation to victims sometimes not taking it beyond to court, not giving witness statements. So it's not all the Met's fault. The Met are actually quite proactive. What I'm saying to the Met is they need to seriously look at the online world, read the CPS, work with the CPS's guidelines more proactively, and actually look at this area, because actually this is where the community confidence is being lost now. Actually, it's the online world where the community confidence is being lost because there's so much communication and it's so fast and so accessible.
Massoud, do you think fundamentally the issue has to be tackled a couple of stages further back? Because, you know, we've had more than a decade now of a kind of Islamic, anti-Islamic discourse framed by the war on terror. Not surprising after that length of time that something like this happens, you get this response. So do you think we need to start further back in the politics?
Yes, we do. But may I just say one point? You know, the case that I was telling you, eventually they arrested 18-year-old Muslim girl and transferred her to another police station, which meant she was kept for 48 hours and questioned before she could release. This is outrageous. But yes, I think the problem is not just extreme right. I mean, the problem goes far beyond. You know, when YouGov did the research and the poll, which showed 37% of the electorate in Britain are going to vote for a political party which will be committed to reduce the number of Muslims in Britain. Now, you know, that in reality, what it means that they are going to vote for a political party which is committed to either sort of ethnically cleanse people or force them to change their religion or commit genocide, because there's no other way to reduce. And you know, there hasn't been such an outrage to sort of this sort of sentiment that actually goes beyond extreme far right. You know, media, etc. You know, even Metropolitan Police, you know, has got a problem institutionally in its which needs to deal with. And all we are getting, you know, is the direction is changing towards dealing and seeing Muslims as either terrorists or possible terrorists. And I'll give you an example. The Muslim Contact Unit, which was set up after 9/11 to create a better relationship between Muslim community and Met, it recently was transferred to SO15, which is anti-terrorism department. So, you know, Muslims, this proves that Muslims are only, the Metropolitan Police really sees Muslims as a possible terrorist, and everything to do with us is either under SO15 anti-terrorism or under preventing us to become a terrorist. There is no real good relationship, and whatever there was is actually no longer there.
Do you think this is true, that it's corroded now, the relationship between significant sections of the Muslim community and the police?
Well, I think Prevent has certainly not helped. Clearly, Prevent has not helped, and one of the reasons...
And it looks as if the government's going to revive it.
Well, it certainly looks like it's already revived and running effectively. But this is one of the reasons why there is underreporting, significant underreporting from the Muslim community. And this is where the disparity with the Muslim community comes in, because young men are scared of what happens with their data. Young men are scared, and young women nowadays increasingly are also scared as to what will happen, not only with their data, but also what's the point of reporting in. Now, I know that the Met police officers, I've gone out with them. These people are committed, dedicated officers. They're professional. We've got one of the best professional services here. We can't knock the Met consistently. The slight but I have to say is we, civil society and the police and others, need to be proactive in terms of building the confidence up. And there is a significant lack of confidence. But again, we need to keep it in perspective. It's not all the Met's fault. These are dedicated officers, but we all need to come together and see how we can raise the level of confidence building. And third sector organisations like ours play a role in that.
Do you think really that, you know, we've dealt with the specifics of the police response, but the police response is going to be framed by what the government and the politicians do, and it looks very, very likely that the government will be heading down the line of reviving, of re-emphasising prevent, because prevent was a kind of car crash at the end of the last Labour government, being, castigated by the Select Committee and so forth. This looks like the Tories' attempt to revive it and get it back in a much more, in a more forceful form, at any rate, if not as forceful as originally. Then there's the whole revival of the Snoopers Charter. This seems to be the direction that the government's heading in, and that will frame the police's response, won't it?
I mean, the police's response clearly is framed by what the government will be doing. And, on the issues of the Snoopers Charter, well, again, there's accessibility to data. I can actually see both sides of the argument now. I used to be one of those people who said, well, no, access to data is really important to protect. But I can see some of the problems that the Met are dealing with. And I'm kind of on the fence at the moment, because actually having access to data is really important in a prosecution, absolutely fundamental. And actually, if we're saying, well, the Met's not doing enough, the Met also needs access to some of that data. So, I've kind of moved my position, because in the end, if you want to send a signal that hate crime or hate incidents are wrong, hate crimes are wrong in our society because of faith, race, etc., you need to get prosecutions to send that public message out.
Massoud, do you think the problem is the access to data? Because, even with foreign servers, as we've seen with a number of high-profile extradition cases, when the police want to go after, or the state wants to go after somebody, even if it's posted from a foreign server, they can pretty soon get them into court, get them extradited, and that doesn't seem to be what's applied in the cases that Fiyaz has been mentioning, where there's month after month of Islamophobic stuff being posted.
Absolutely. I mean, really, the reality is that what we are complaining about is double standard. We are seeing that other communities are protected. If a Muslim writes a poem on the back of the till receipts, gets prosecuted, or indeed makes any comments on the on internet. But the reality is that it's a double standard, which is first and most important to actually put right. The reality is that if we had one synagogue attacked in the way that we have seen masajids and mosques being attacked, there would have been complete different response. We all know that. And I think that we all need to get the same response. We need to make sure that our synagogues, our mosques, our sort of Hindu temples, etc., are all protected equally. We should get rid of this double standard. But the problem is that, the government and the police and the institutions, especially in the last 5 years, have actually started only dealing with the sections of Muslim community that they like their songs. And they've got the preferred organization that they deal with, but they're actually cutting away from those who have been in professionally dealing with these issues, because they don't like to listen and hear the criticism that comes from the genuine Muslim community and Muslim community organization. We are very critical, and rightly so. Politicians have not really come out to condemn this. I mean, immediately after the Woolwich, we were told that they're going to increase the security for the barracks. For God's sake, barracks are military bases. They could protect themselves against two madmen with kitchen knife. But what cannot protect itself is actually our mosques, our centers. And I wrote this to the commissioner, and all I got back was one of these public relation wishy-washy that we look after the interests of everybody.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there. Massoud and Fiyaz in the studio, and Commander Letchford, who joined us by the phone. Thank you all, and do rejoin us after the adverts for the second part of the Politics and Media programme.